G'day, legends. I hope that you're having a fantastic day and a fantastic midweek. Now, I'm not going to BS you. The amount of news that we've had in the past 24 hours isn't that much, but we are going to go over a few things that have popped up that you might find interesting and some things that I've also been thinking about. Now, like a white girl at a festival, I've been really feeling a vibe, but seriously, it does seem that there has been a vibe shift overall to this conflict over the past couple of weeks. Now, people will claim that I'm very pessimistic towards Ukraine and only report on the bad things, which I absolutely do not believe to be true. I've spent many, many months in Ukraine. I've done humanitarian missions, all of this. But the truth in this over the past couple of weeks is there hasn't been actually that much good news to really report on, as well as, gains on the front line. So prepare your keyboard warrior fingers again. Now, if you'd like to be a real keyboard warrior, go and buy some merch. It's back up. It's been taken down, back up, whatever. I've sorted it out if you'd like to. That's the best way to support me. Anyway, I consume tens and tens of different sources of media, from the mainstream ones, both left and right, pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian Telegram chats, pro-Russian, pro-Ukrainian Twitter chats, bloody everything, all the way through to my sources actually on the ground as well. And there does seem to be a shift when it comes to further support for Ukraine. Now, in the beginning of this, every dick and his dog supported Ukraine no matter what. Great. But it does seem that now there is more criticism than ever, especially about further ongoing support. And the mainstream has been casting more doubt. Politicians in the US and EU have really been speaking against further support. Now, I know the Speaker of the House in the US has basically been sacked. We don't have a replacement yet. This could either go really good or really bad for Ukraine on that. I don't know enough about it to actually speak on that. But something I will speak on is even Elon Musk has really taken direct aim at President Zelensky. And of course, President Zelensky is really the face of this war. Elon Musk is one of the most famous men on the planet, and he's the richest man on earth come days one or two. But people, I don't think actually understand the difference between like net worth and net earnings. Like, people go, you pay no what you're worth is not like what your taxable income is. But of course, Elon, through his social media channel X, Twitter, whatever the bloody hell it is now, absolutely into a frenzy when he put this up. When it's been 5 minutes and you haven't asked for $1 billion in aid. Of course, this old meme with President Zelensky's face here and having almost 90 million impressions on the platform. A hell of a lot. And that threw absolutely people bloody into hysterics about this as well. Now, Elon Musk, of course, has been sort of in the firing line from the pro-Ukrainian NATO accounts as, more came up about the Starlink internet with the drones down in the south. So we're not 100% sure what actually happened there, because the two sides, like, Musk will say they were never turned on, and the other side will say, well, they were then turned off. But we do know that Musk's Starlink is absolutely critical for Ukraine as well, and there could be a bit of a shift here, and many people are really pointing at this as well. And then there was many reactions to this, whatever, but I found like this one from a NATO guy, these fella people. Very good, Elon. Show the world, not kind of heartless, pathetic little man that you are, with some large claims in here being about this word, these words, and these here as well. Now, I think making a meme about someone's leader doesn't translate into that he's actually doing these things. I get it's satire, but it is pretty extreme. And I see that so much that just so someone having a different view or bloody basically means that you're bloody doing these horrific war crimes. And people put me in that basket as well. But there's been a bit of online back and forth. But the funniest one I saw, the funniest thing was someone referred to Elon as Space Karen, which are fucking funny. But I can absolutely see where Elon is coming from and how people have reacted to this as well. And we're going to go over where, I guess, some more of this criticism and doubt actually is stemming from. So It is stemming from a number of things, but I think first and foremost is actually the lack of ground made in Ukraine's long-awaited. There was trailers released, all of this for the counter-offensive, for the offensive. Now, I actually believe, too, the West hold a lot of responsibility and accountability for this counter-offensive. We will have in our own doctrine, one of the main things for offensive action is air power, air superiority, the ability to strike deep, all of this, which the West held back Ukraine from. And if these ATACMS, more missiles, planes were in action from the start, or at least in training from the start, they would have been there for the offensive actions. And they weren't. The West would never go on an offensive like this without at least that air, some sort of more air power there too. So I do believe there is some accountability and responsibility as well. And as well, yes, we know Ukraine went out to train, but how many soldiers in the West realistically have been in a near-peer conflict against artillery, air power, whatever? Think of the previous 40 years. They're your most senior guys in any Western serving militaries. Have a think. They're not very many. But as well, is the length of the conflict. It is really starting to drag on now. So people are, aiming more criticism in and, maybe thinking on the other side of this as well. And you can't deny the economic situation at home, that in the West, in America, Europe, Australia, that things are more expensive and people are, instinctively selfish. That people go, well, the fuck am I paying? Like today, I filled up my car at $2.30 a litre of fuel and I have an 80-litre tank. Very bloody expensive, and people do look inwards more than outwards, especially with the border crisis both in Europe and the US that we are seeing. And one of the other reasons I think people are thinking like this is this sort of constant stream of Ukrainian officials, mainly Zelensky, asking for more and more funding, which of course they absolutely need to do. If I was in their shoes, I'd be doing the exact same thing, and I don't hold that against him. But if you're the average consumer of media about this conflict and you hear and see time and time again asking for billions upon billions of dollars while you're spending more money everywhere else in your life, and then you'll hear that less than 1% of land has actually been liberated and taken back, well, then I can absolutely see where these opinions are formed. And you can't blame people for being misinformed. Not everyone sits down and watches a bloody 30-minute Willy video, Dennis video, whatever, every night. But like I said, I can see where these opinions get formed. But you also can't rule out as well successful Russian propaganda. And like I say, all propaganda has some level of truth. And some of this small level of truth has been reinforced by some unfortunate events in Ukraine recently, like the missiles being confirmed in Poland that were Ukrainian, like the whole interview with Sarah Ashton Cirillo. Things like that reinforces some of that propaganda from there. Now, like I said, propaganda may be this, but it has to have a degree of truth in it. So there's definitely been some success in the propaganda there. And I think we have seen this shift from the media just being 1,000% Ukraine to now. If you just go on a, what do they call the window you open up where it doesn't track you? Whatever that bloody is, incognito mode or VPN, whatever, and just type in Ukraine. And the mainstream there, the top sort of ones are about what's going to happen with ammunition, as there's been a lot of doubts today around ammunition from the West. What's going to happen now the speaker's out? What's going to happen with further support? Things like this. The mainstream is on that sort of train too. And the mainstream, whatever, will follow where the money goes. They'll follow the clicks. They get paid the same way I get paid. When you click on my video, I get paid like 0.001 cents, something like that. It's about $3 per 1,000 views. So you can work out if I get 100,000 views, how much I'm making. Look at the other creators getting 1 million views. You can work out sort of how much they're making. That does fluctuate more. If you live in the US, it's more like 6 to 10, but the rest of us, that's about what we're getting. But The Guardian, Al Jazeera, buddy, 9 News, ABC, they're all getting paid. Well, not ABC because our tax pays for that, but they're all getting paid in the same way, and they'll follow where the clicks are. And if more people are clicking on bad things about Ukraine, that's where the narrative will then steer the media from there. But I'm absolutely not the only one to have noticed this. It's becoming very very clear in the statements made by Ukrainian officials, as well as the Biden administration, as well as, pro-Ukraine media or Ukraine-backed media as well. So let's actually have a look over some of these. So Vistagrad24, who is Ukraine media here, to all those laughing at the Zelensky meme, just ask yourselves this: how far would you go to defend your family, your hometown, city, country if they were attacked? What would you do if your only chance of defense was the generosity of a wealthier, more powerful nation? And this is exactly like I said earlier on in this video, that I would be doing the exact same thing. And if China invaded Australia, I'd be doing all the same shit there as well. Now, how do we go from a full-scale Russian invasion and war crimes on the Ukrainian people to caring for and supporting Ukraine being held against Western politicians? So you can see where they're reacting to more of this coming out from pollies and from the media. Given the stakes, the actual question is, why does everyone not care 100 times more about Ukraine? And, people in their everyday life, you can't force them into caring about something. We should care 100 times more about what's going on in Africa, what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on with the environment. There's plenty of things about our own health. We should care so much more about so much of this stuff, but there's so many things to care about that it's sort of like, holy shit, I don't know what to care about, if that makes sense. And people get turned away from things as well. Now, of course, we have President Biden, who has been a massive supporter of Ukraine through his whole term. Of course, that term's coming up in about 12 months, saying this only yesterday. While the majority of Congress has been steadfast in the support for Ukraine, the bipartisan bill has no funding to continue it. We can't allow this to be interrupted. I expect the Speaker to keep his word and secure the passage of support for Ukraine at this critical moment. Now, we know the Speaker has been booted. We don't know where this will go from here. There's a lot of rumours that there was some deal between the Speaker and Biden, but unfounded at this point. But of course, sort of putting up that more people are criticising this, well, we need to shift that away. Now, Mikhailo Podolyak, who's on this channel a lot, he says this: if we call a spade, yes, it is clear that Ukraine needs artillery shells, long-range missiles and air defence systems. The survival of the country and its people is what weapons are for us here and now. But you, our partners, also badly need Ukraine to have artillery shells, long-range missiles and air defence systems, because this is about existence, about rules, about the future, about economics, math, about what is cheaper, to stop Russia now or to wait until Russia's bloodthirsty ambitions grow significantly. Politicians will tell you that it is expensive today, but they will not tell you the main thing. Tomorrow's consequences will be much more expensive for global security and stability, economy, and international law. So this is really what the pro-Ukraine side, the officials, this is what they will go on, is if we don't stop Russia in Ukraine now, Russia will rearm, they will move on, they'll continue expansion. The cheapest way is to fund Ukraine here and now, to stop Russia doing that beyond in the future. That, well, Poland, Germany, whatever, you don't need shells if we can stop Russia here. Now, I somewhat agree with this, but I do think that militaries around the world, states, shouldn't give up all of their defence as well. They should still keep a lot for themselves. You never know what is coming, whether China bloody throw the hat in the ring, whatever. So I still think it's incredibly important that individual states keep their own military and their sovereignty from there. But I can see what they're saying here. A war with Russia from other powers would be so much more expensive than this. And this is where most of that thinking of the officials comes from in there as well, that more needs to go in. But as we talked about in this, people say, well, how much have we already sent and how much has actually been made? If it was $70 billion for 1%, where does this actually end and where does this lead us? And it's very easy to make an argument against that when we're talking nuclear weapons, nuclear testing. Putin said there may be a nuclear test. It's very easy to form an argument against that. And as we said, Biden they've definitely noticed this shift, as well as he's made another call with allies and partners. And this was from the White House's briefings from the October the 3rd. Now, today, President Biden convened a call with allies and partners to coordinate our ongoing support for the people of Ukraine as they defend their freedom and independence against Russia's brutal invasion. President Biden reaffirmed the United States' commitment to supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes, and it defends its sovereignty and territorial integrity, with fellow leaders echoing their commitment. So, really echoing out not only for his administration, but the other allies that support is still ongoing, because I think this is all in reaction to a lot of the media picking up and being like somewhat critical or against things, or putting some sparks of doubt in there as well. And if you're noticing this, well, we're not the only ones. Now, no, I don't think military support to Ukraine will end at all. I actually think it could ramp up, especially from the US. These giga companies, these behemoth military companies, they just have too much power and they make too much money off a protracted conflict, especially for it to be negotiated to an end now. The people, if you call me a conspiracist for that, that's fine. I don't think people fully get how much power these trillion-dollar defense companies and billions of dollars defense contracts actually have when it comes to then the politics then behind that too. And these are very, very powerful companies with very, very powerful contacts as well. So we don't know, but I don't think that we'll see military support into Ukraine at least anytime soon. But like I said in the beginning, I have definitely noticed a shift in the reporting and the amount of criticism. And that's not going to get better quickly. This could become well more unpopular, as especially the fighting offensive season, that's ended. Well, it hasn't ended. It's a few weeks left before the rain really comes in and it gets wet. But any huge breakthrough from here, there's only going to be a couple of weeks. So we're not really sure what it's going to look like over the winter. People are saying that Russia could go on the offensive again. We don't know, but it's going to be hard to convince the public into another protracted war. It's just going to be a hard sell when the offensive hasn't made that much ground, even if we should wear some of the accountability and responsibility for that as well. I can see where people are throwing some doubt. Now, we've spoken about Ukraine's end goal being to enter NATO and the EU, but we've also discussed that the war needs to be ended for this to happen. Now, Slovakia's foreign minister said at the Warsaw Security Forum, Ukraine first must win the war. Sorry, that was wrong. Ukraine must first win the war. This is a necessary precondition. So we must do everything we can to help Ukraine win this war and regain its sovereignty and territorial integrity. So that's what we just know. We know that Ukraine can't enter these, that they need to enter for their long-term stability and defense needs until the war is ended. And this is where people go, well, where is this actually then going to end? Now, European Council President Charles Michel has said in an interview yesterday, Ukraine may indeed become a member of the EU in 2030 if both sides do their homework. Ukraine and other candidate countries for accession into the EU must actively and steadily carry out reforms, fight corruption, and comply with legal conditions. So still throwing that it could be another 7 years. Now, as well, something that I saw that I need to throw my 2 cents in and be like, this is just probably bullshit, is I believe, actually, before we get into this, I believe that all the casualty figures that we're seeing, I don't believe any of them. I think they're all bullshit. It's estimated number, because there's no way we can actually have exactly what it is. Like, how have you added up that 451 people have been hit when there's a lot behind the line? Bloody some of these weapons just pink mist people. Like, they're all just an estimate, and I believe that, of course, it's used as a sense of propaganda too. So, of course, sides will overestimate. Now, Rybar has released some figures that are, I believe, a great overestimation of this as well. So, recoverable losses of Ukrainian formations. So, they're saying that total killed is nearly 500,000. So, 493,678 from this many from the armed forces, this from the National Guard, the National Battalions, and then this foreign mercenaries. Now, I don't believe that the numbers are anywhere near this large. We know that the casualties in this war from both sides have been huge. They are large. There's no way that it is tiny. We know it's large, and we know by the end of the war it's going to be massive as well. I have often said, by whichever way this war goes, if Russia continue to push through, or Ukraine do get their offensive through Donetsk, Crimea, just as a total figure, we're going to see well over 1 million people dead. The fighting that's going to have to occur through cities like Donetsk, Sevastopol, areas like this, is going to be absolutely massive and grinding. We're still going to see 1 million. But these numbers, if these numbers in my eyes were correct, we wouldn't see, I think Ukraine would collapse its military with that sort of numbers. But we don't really know. We probably will never know, but I doubt that it's anywhere near that high. But we will hear that echoed again and again. Now, Defense Minister for Russia, Sergei Shoigu, has told top generals on state television that there are no plans for an additional mobilization. So we've talked about this before, that could Russia mobilize again, mobilize more people? Can they do it? Yes. Is it in the structure to do it? But as the election's coming up next year for President of Russia, for Putin, although we know he'll get it, it still matters if the president has support, popular or not, and mobilizations are very unpopular. So can they actually do it and maintain popularity? Maybe not. We don't really know. But he has said there's no extra plans. Now, the armed forces have the necessary number of military personnel to conduct the special military operation. Since the start of the year, more than 335,000 people have entered military service under contract in volunteer battalions. In September alone, more than 50,000 citizens signed contracts. We know about this time of year, sort of nearing the end of the year, that Russia does recruit more people, does mobilize more people as part of the national service as well. And that is lifted numbers for these years, but that is normal in there too. So what we're going to do is have a look at a motivational video released from the Ukrainian side here as well. Use it.
Я воюю за те, щоб моя Україна не була подібна до вашого болота. Я воюю за те, щоб повернутися до рідного Криму.
So I did forget to say, this does throw a lot of shade onto the Russians as well. Like this. They're fighting in swamp, and I fight so like scum like you. Don't trample on our land.
Я воюю за те, що мій прадід заповів бити окупантів. Був би він живий, бив би вас разом зі мною.
Я воюю за те, щоб захистити своїх рідних.
Я воюю тому, що ви знищили моє місто.
Я воюю тому, що вас ніхто сюди не запрошував. Ми воюємо за те, щоб розпрощатися з вами назавжди.
So talk about why they fight with some of the biggest Ukrainian, or most successful Ukrainian hits here. So of course we have the one against then the Navy boat from the drone boat chip thing, and then against the Kremlin here as well with the firebomb thing. This against then the Black Sea Fleet, and here we have the end.
А ти, Вань, за що воюєш?
So, and you, what are you fighting for? So, an effort to recruit more people and a bit of motivation in there as well. We know Ukraine does release a lot of these sort of trailer videos as well. We saw the ones for drone strikes on Moscow, which never really eventuated. And then the Hush campaign for the offensive, all of that. Now, without further ado, I pronounce you husband or wife. No, we're going to have a look at the maps. Now, Deep State map has not updated today, but we have Daily Ukraine map update, and I will say there's not too many updates, but of course we have Ukraine here, the capital of Kyiv. These red areas not with the bloody border, these are since 22, and with the border is since 14. Of course, this is Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk in here, and of course this area around here is Russia, and this is Belarus as well. Now, let's have a look over a few little bits and pieces. So on this map, we don't see any change down in here around Robotyne, this area. We don't see any real change on this map, and I can't find any maps saying there has been much change in here as well. The only thing that did show up on this map from a few days ago was this little southerly push from the Russians, northerly push from the Russians, getting a bit of ground in the south there, but no real change in here. Then we'll move to the west near this sort of Uruzani front, where we heard yesterday that Russia had some slight advancement in here as well. So ISW actually also said there was some in here. So saying this, that Russian source claimed on October 2nd that Russian forces had advanced north of Protuny in here. So this more a yellow zone in around here. So now, of course, where that is we're talking in and around this region that Russia may have made some small bit of ground. But up and down the rest of the map, we see no real shift, except if we come into Bakhmut, we can just see the ISW has said this yesterday that Ukraine did make a marginal gain in here. So let's go back. And then we see just right here, this little bit of gain up to where the train line runs through there. Now, ISW doesn't show any movement on the map, but it does say that Russia may, or at least claim to have made more ground up and around in the northeast near the Kupiansk district in here, but it doesn't show what was actually changed on then the map. So we just have one Syriac map update here as well, saying this: situation northwest of Donetsk city, During the last days, Ukrainian army retook a series of positions northeast of Novelsky as a result of positional battles with the Russian army. But this isn't replicated on the Deep State, the ISW, or the daily Ukraine map update, but showing that ground has been made there. And that was the only map update from Syriac there too. Now, that is everything that I have to go over today. Again, I do apologize if it's boring, but there's just not that much to be working with at the moment, at least that I find really interesting. But in the next couple of days, I do have some very different videos for you as well. So I hope you enjoy that. Legends, look after yourself. Have a great day. Have a great end to the week if I don't speak to you by then. And I'll speak to you soon. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.